this is okay. Let's get into the obvious thing. Why am I doing this? I've only done 2 movie reviews in my entire life, if you don't count the 50 greatest disaster movies of all time when I was starting up Strange World because I didn't know what the hell else to talk about.
Yep.
And I did a movie review, as you know, back when The Last Jedi came out because I hated it so much, and it changed the franchise, in my opinion, to where it changed everything. It was horrible, and I gave up Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But why would I care? It's like, I do flat Earth videos. Why the hell would I care about Justice League? Well, because I am a huge comic book fan. Now, I don't know the lore as much as you. You can run circles around me when it comes to lore. Yes, I own a comic book shop in the late 80s. Yes, I did. Do I have 5 Alex Ross prints framed in this apartment right now? Yes, I do. Which most people do not see. You caught a glimpse of one of them in the documentary. I've got an aluminum carved Justice League logo banner on my wall that I'm staring at. I think there's only 3 of them in the whole world. That's made by this guy in Colorado. And like you know, I grew up with the early superhero movies. Superman, the movie, back when DC ran the table. And I like a fair fight. The big difference between DC and Marvel, which we'll get into a little bit, where DC was doing all this great stuff, and then Marvel hit the right thing at the right time, and everything was aligning for them, and Marvel was just cleaning up to where now they're part of the Disney machine. And I thought the DC universe was in real trouble. I watched when he changed over from Bryan Singer to Zack Snyder, when Superman went to Man of Steel, which had its problems. And then Batman v Superman, and then finally Justice League, and Justice League was a freaking mess, and I did not know the backstory behind it, and which was what we'll now lead into. Go ahead, because you were the one that recommended this to me. I actually wasn't really even that interested in watching it, and when you recommended, this is why we're doing this, is because you recommended this to me, the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and I watched it, and it is not like, and I'll let you talk in 1 second, because I want you to talk, this is not like the director's cuts you hear from, which you and I have dealt with for years and years and years, which is like, an extra 8 minutes of footage here and some deleted scenes, reestablished here. The fact that the only director's cut which really changed the game for the movie for me was the Leon the Professional, where you have the young Natalie Portman actually killing a whole bunch of people, and it changed the whole tone of the movie. She actually was a killer, and it makes so much sense because she's acting the mobster guy at the end. She wants to be a hitman at the end. It's like, that doesn't even make sense. Well, it does after you watch that cut.
Yep.
This is not that. This is not even, I don't even know if you could call it an official director's cut, because it is a completely different movie.
I agree. I mean, it's first of all, it's 4 hours.
Yeah.
Which
yes.
Which you weren't going to get that into theaters. You could have broken it up into 2 halves, but it really wouldn't have worked either, because the halfway mark isn't enough of a cliffhanger to really get people to want to come back.
Right.
So this cut, this project, Zack Snyder's Justice League, or sometimes just referred to as the Snyder Cut, really has its roots in something else that happened in 2006 called the Superman 2 Richard Donner cut.
Yeah.
Which was and I hesitate to say it's a forerunner, because it really is the closest thing we have to the Snyder Cut.
Right.
Prior to this. Richard Donner, of course, directed Superman 1 and 2, and they were filmed back to back. They were filmed as if it was one big 4-hour-long movie.
Right.
And sometime after Superman the movie was released, or actually before Superman movie was actually released, the Sulkins, the somewhat shady producers of that film,
yeah,
decided to cut Donner out, and then they hired Richard Lester, who had done primarily comedies and Beatles films up until that point,
Right.
to come in and change everything around. And so there were major plot points that were moved from the first film to the second film, and vice versa. And the Richard Donner cut was released in 2006 because of an internet campaign,
Yep.
primarily, and it was basically a retelling of what Superman 2 should have been, but they didn't actually film anything new. They couldn't. The footage was all from late 1970s,
Yeah.
so they used screen tests of Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve to fill in the gaps and make an interesting looking project. It's not, you wouldn't want to watch it as for entertainment. You watch it because you want to see a window into filmmaking,
Right.
and such.
Yep.
But Snyder Cut is an order of magnitude different. They spend almost as much money on this cut as they would have on an ordinary film.
Right.
I think it's something like $80 million. I'm estimating there, but based on what I've read. But what we got in theaters was the result of an edict from Warner Brothers. They said, look, Marvel's cleaning house. Look what they're doing. Let's hire the guy behind the first two Avengers movies to come in. And,
we should give the backstory really fast, which is
right.
So the movie, the original Justice League, which was envisioned by Zack Snyder. Well, heck, let's back up a little bit here. Let's give people, anyone that's on the outside going, okay, what the hell are we talking about here? Zack Snyder is an interesting director in his own right, and he directed. Talk about hitting the ground running. His early works, the Dawn of the Dead remake, which I enjoyed so much. Saw that in the theater. Thought it was great. He followed that immediately with 300. Frank Miller's masterpiece, which was probably the truest, and you can challenge this if you want, the truest graphic novel to screen adaptation I've ever seen, and put Frank Miller on a whole nother level to where he could, it's like, oh yeah, whatever Frank Miller made, let's just turn that into something. And Frank Miller went off and did stuff. Sin City was awesome, but what was the Spirit? Not so much. And then he followed that, Zack Snyder, with probably will be his opus, which is The Watchmen. And which, as I was watching, we'll get into this a little bit more, which is that the Watchmen template seemed to be what he was using for this. Right. And he did some other stuff. He ended up doing, what was it, Sucker Punch, and then he got into Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. But you could tell that he wanted to turn Justice League into this opus. So, okay, so why didn't he finish it? He didn't finish it because his daughter died, adopted daughter, I believe, towards the end of shooting, if I'm not mistaken. And he, am I right on that?
You are right, yes.
Yeah, then he left. And so they bring in Joss Whedon, which, as you know, he's a completely different animal, which is he started in television, produced a lot of, he's got a huge sci-fi following, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly, Serenity, and then one of the first movies he ever directed was The Avengers. And talk about hitting in the right place at the right time, and he was a perfect fit for that. And then did Avengers: Age of Ultron, and when they bring him in, as you know, the studio. I think my opinion on this is that Zack Snyder was going to turn the Justice League into another 3-hour and 10-minute Watchmen at the very least, and the studio's like, okay, Joss, what will it take to make this thing under 2 hours? And you can have some creative control. And Joss comes in, and I didn't realize how much he reshot to add what Red Letter Media now calls the $1 million jokes. Because Joss Whedon is known notoriously for comedic bullet points. He's like, scene works up to a crescendo, and then tagline, catchphrase, comedic bullet points, which usually work.
Right.
But not in this movie, which you ripped out so much for. And it was because Zack Snyder makes dark movies. He does. Oh, yeah. He starts out with Dawn of the Dead. That's his opener. And
Yep.
then, and so Joss Whedon, and so what you saw in the theaters was this 2 hour mess that was so inconsistent, and there were so many things that didn't make sense. So anyway, sorry, that's where we started. So what it was like, why the hell was the Zack Snyder cut remade, and also the pandemic? This couldn't have happened without the pandemic. Like, it's the only
You're right.
good thing to come out of it, which is like, okay, theaters aren't open, and we're, so now you can come in. He did it apparently for free, if I'm not mistaken. But he had total creative control, which we'll get to the epilogue when we get to the epilogue. And so, but it's like, you know what? Forget about this 3 hour Watchmen cut. Oh no, we're doing a full 4 hours and 5 minutes.
Yep.
And I blocked it out. I blocked out the time, from 6:30 to 10:30. And I sat there and I watched it. Sorry, we'll now get back into your thing, which is like, but I enjoyed it so much. It solved so many things for me that I turned around and watched it the very next day again. And I forwarded past some parts. I wanted to get to the moments which I really, really enjoyed to remind myself. It's like, okay, why did I really like this movie? So anyway, so here we are. So Joss comes in, and you probably know more about this backstory than I. It's like, okay, bring in Joss Whedon. Yeah, he did great with the Avengers, even though he didn't do Xfinity War and Endgame.
Right.
And he could fix it. And Joss comes in and proceeds to put his stamp on it. And you want to put his scent, his director's, he wanted to make it his own, apparently.
Right.
And but I think also the studio got to him and said,
Yeah.
Well, now that Zack's out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. We need to brighten this up. Cut it in half, and put some jokes in, and reshoot some scenes so that the suits look more colorful. Because one of the criticisms of Zack Snyder's DC films is that he mutes all the colors.
Oh yeah.
Superman's outfit is blue, but it's barely blue. Diana's outfit looks more like lightly tinted leather. And such, and they wanted it brighter and cheerier, like over there in the Marvel movies. But no, absolutely. The studio sort of took advantage of a personal tragedy. Snyder's daughter, I think, had self-deleted, and that's even harder. I mean, a death of a child is hard enough, but to have it happen over that way is just really devastating.
Yeah.
And I think they weren't. I think that they didn't think that Snyder's take on the DC universe was competitive enough, and let's be honest. I kind of covered this in a recent video of mine where all throughout my life the DC heroes were the brightest, cheeriest of the two universes.
Right.
Marvel was the one that had all the problems.
Right.
They were the ones that had to deal with mutant discrimination and alcoholism and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the DC characters, they were still relatively innocent.
Yeah.
And designed more for the young kids, and it's all topsy-turvy in the cinematic universes right now. Most people think of Marvel as the brighter universe. In fact, Deadpool made a joke about it in his last movie. He says, "You're so dark. Are you sure you're not from the DC universe?" When he's talking to what's his face, Cable. Yeah. And so I mean, it became almost a meme at that point, and I think Warner was concerned about that.
Yeah.
But in trying to change the film into something it wasn't, they cut out a lot of heart and soul. I mean, just looking at the characters that were introduced in Justice League, they're actually introduced in Batman v Superman, but they were properly introduced in this film. Aquaman in particular, his solo movie makes a heck of a lot more sense after seeing the Snyder cut.
Right.
You had the scene with Willem Dafoe in there. You had a little bit more discussion about his kingdom and his situation, and I find it interesting that Amber Heard had a British accent in the original footage.
Yes.
I went back and looked at the Whedon cut. And they had clearly, and I didn't notice this the first time I saw it. I thought maybe it was an effect because they were underwater or something, where Amber Heard had redubbed her lines in her normal speaking style.
Oh, I didn't know that.
and they're not it doesn't quite sync up as well, but they did the best they could.
Sure.
Ezra Miller's Flash I absolutely couldn't stand
In the
in
first,
the
in the Whedon
yeah,
version, yeah.
in the Whedon cut. In this one he was much uh much
Oh,
easier to relate to.
well,
You know.
he was inspiring to me. I mean,
Mhm.
the what Flash does in his spare time, saving the girl in the car wreck scene
Mhm.
was gorgeous. It
Oh yeah.
was, I mean, it was heartfelt. I was
Mhm.
just staring at it, going, "Wow, this is
Yeah.
because." And let's face it, by the end, he was a Greek god by
Mhm.
the end of this thing, and you wonder in the you want it's when you're looking at something that's good, when you're wondering at the end, it's like, did he even tell him? Did he even tell him what he did? It's like, oh yeah, by the way, you all died. The
Yeah.
world was destroyed, and
Yeah.
he made what's the famous one of those quotes that gets used over and over. Um, Marvel, what is it? Marvel. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, we're using time travel in our movie Flash. Hold my beer.
Yeah.
And they showed what you could do, and I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but they showed what you could do with time travel in what in 60 seconds. It's like,
Mhm.
let me. Of course, it's Zack Snyder, so they drew it out a lot longer than that. But it was you
Right.
didn't have to explain it. You just
Mhm.
showed what he could do, and he did it. And yeah, what they did with the Flash was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that scene where he saves, I guess it's supposed to be Iris West, where she's hanging in midair,
right,
mid-crash,
yeah.
and it's almost there's a beauty to it until, of course, he grabs the hot dog wiener, and I'm thinking, oh, Zach, what
Oh
are you
no,
doing
but
now?
then you realize
But
why. And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, oh, it's a cover. It's nice. It's nice.
yeah.
He was thinking so far ahead
Hmm.
that he was still worried about getting his job at the pet
Yeah,
store. It's
yeah,
like,
exactly. And I loved that he didn't vibrate through the store window, that he
nope.
just broke it with his finger, and that he's traveling so fast that obviously his shoes cannot handle the the
Yeah,
dynamic
exactly.
shock,
As
you know.
well done as the X-Men Quicksilver scenes were, and they were amazing to watch. I loved watching, both the from both movies
Hmm.
where he was using his super speed. You realize that Flash is on a quantum level
Yeah.
to where he can do just anything. He can generate amazing electrical fields. He can
Hmm.
and time travel to a limited
Hmm.
capacity.
Right.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah. The tendency with the Flash is to, because he's so I mean, technically nobody should be able to get one on in on the Flash because
right,
of his ability to, essentially slow down time around him and stuff like that.
right.
So one of the things that writers have often done is, look, we have to make this guy able to be affected by a bad guy in some way. So that what
Right.
they do is they make him a bit of a ditz.
Yeah.
In particular, the Wally West version, because he was originally Kid Flash, the original
Yeah.
Flash's sidekick, or the second Flash's sidekick, and then he grew up after Crisis and all that kind of stuff to become the new Flash. But
Right.
this was supposed to be Barry Allen, and Barry Allen, of course, in the comics is a police scientist. He's analytical. He's very much a lot like a lot of the superheroes that came out of the late 50s, early 60s. He's your dad,
Yeah.
you know, and so giving Barry Allen a more of a Wally West sort of personality is it makes sense.
Yeah. The
But
scene, the little things, they removed all the bad stuff.
mhm,
Let's concentrate on the Flash just a little bit, because
sure.
the only backstory they filled in, the complete backstory now is
Mhm.
Cyborg, and there are no more questions about. You don't have to worry about
Right.
Cyborg's backstory. It is
Mhm.
completely fleshed out in all ways, shape, and form. But with the Flash, what he did was he didn't remove the comic relief entirely, because you didn't really have to, because everyone else is so dark. The Flash is going
Mhm.
to come off as lighter anyway.
Right.
But they removed the obvious things like the brunch
Uh,
line, which
yeah, the brunch line.
which was terrible. Or even the
Yeah.
little things, you probably remember this, when the Flash saved Diana and landed on
Mhm.
top of her, which harkens back to the old schoolyard joke, which you don't talk about. It's we've all heard when we're growing up. That's gone. The Flash scene that was really underrated, which I thought was just fantastic. A lot of people missed it, was when all the debris was going to fall on the people. And he was jumping over them at such a high rate of speed, and the lightning, it was like a strobe effect where he was just moving all this debris, and all you saw were just these arcs of him over you at, I don't know, 100 feet, give or take. And, it's just, and at the very end, he thinks he's done, and there's one more piece, and then a Cyborg blows it up. But, to show you, it's like he's not infallible, but he was just coming into his own in this movie. Anyway.
I will say there was one Flash moment from the Whedon cut that I didn't think was that bad that is missing here, and I don't miss it, but it was when he confides in Batman, look, it's great that you guys are all about to fight the bad guy and stuff, but I've never done that. I've just pushed people and then ran away.
Yeah,
and,
Yep, they remove all aspects of weakness. Any doubt? Yeah, that whole scene where he's like, "Look, I don't do this." Yeah, they pulled that out. The same thing they did. Seth. They did the same thing with Batman, where you probably remember. I think you remember it, where Batman's in his crawly machine, whatever. You remember what it was called? I don't remember what it was called.
Batcrawler.
The Batcrawler. We call it the Batcrawler. And Steppenwolf jumps on top of him, and he says, "Wow, you are big." Like he's intimidated briefly by Steppenwolf. Even that was pulled out. It's like, you're pulling out anything that makes these heroes look less than confident. And you're right. It wasn't that bad that Barry didn't talk about it. But I noticed that when you remove that out of there, it made him look more like, you know what? For the most part, I know what I'm doing. And it kind of led up to the end where he's actually telling himself, it's like, I am part of the best, and I am doing this, and well, in the end, he was, in my opinion, the game changer. They didn't make it. They didn't pull it off, and he again, it was a great little nod for how to show you. It's like, time travel, you don't have to spend an hour just beating it to death. It's like you can just do it. Which, let me lead into something else. It wasn't just that Zack Snyder restored his vision. He also had the benefit of, 2 years worth of social media comments that he could look through. And because everything that was broken or people complained about loud enough, I noticed because I was in that majority, is gone. To where even little things like, hey, Steppenwolf doesn't look that interesting, so let's cover him with a silver active fiber metal armor that's constantly moving. Little things like that where you didn't have to change, all the scenes, you could just overlay it on top. And also remove, by the way, let's go back real fast to the removing anything weakness and things of confidence. The other scene that was very, very missing, whatever, which is Aquaman when he was sitting on the lasso.
Right.
That's gone because he was burying his soul. It's like, not something I would do for a guy that, you're letting him still look like that. It's like, I drink whiskey and save people and punch bad guys. And then I'm going to bare my soul because I'm sitting on the lasso of truth. And it's like, and I see where Joss was going. And it's like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if? I think that was Joss's entire thing. It's like, all I have to do is get the studio to pay for it. And those are all gone now. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, let's talk kind of chronologically through some of the stuff. So it opens with some of the big changes where he opens. Things are expanded and things they're different. It opens with Superman dying in ultra slow-mo and him screaming, and his screams are sending shock waves through the entire world. Which is, I thought, actually was fairly well done because it lets everyone know everyone's on the same page. It's like, all right, something's happening out there, and it's not good.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, some people didn't know what was happening, but it was this foreshadowing. It's like, okay, something just happened and it changed the world. And then I forgot what the next scene after that was, or what they lead into. What was the
next one, I believe, was just more of it was more of Lois and what she was doing, I think.
Oh, right. And then they removed the Batman bug scene entirely.
Yes, they did. Parademon scene.
Yeah, the Parademon scene, which was probably a good deal. The scenes, though, we'll go over some of the extended stuff that really, it's his way of saying, okay, here's how you do it. Like Wonder Woman's thwarting the terrorists was expanded. And where the terrorists are going to go in, and they're not just terrorists, they're suicidal bombers.
Right.
They're going to blow.
They're not, nihilists.
They're going to, exactly. Yeah, it's very unusual in movies. You don't see them very often. It's
right.
It's like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to blow up 4 city blocks, and we're just going to do. And you wonder more about that group. It's like that can't be the only faction of them. And she comes in and kills people.
Exactly. Deletes them. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a Zack Snyder movie. This isn't something where people aren't screwing around. And the last guy, where she throws up the bomb, she jumps through the ceiling and throws the bomb into the air. I thought that was really, really great. And then the last guy, who's just not taking no for an answer, he empties a mag into her, and he's like reloading a mag, and she basically vaporizes him.
Yeah. All that's left is his hat.
All that's left is his hat, and if she causes, and I know, the guys from Red Letter were complaining. It's like, wow, that's a little bit of collateral damage. She blew out the front of the building, and a little. Yeah, it was some collateral damage, sure, but it was an exclamation point. It's like I took out all the bad guys, and this guy, I'm going to put my stamp on, and it's his own. It's his own damn fault for doing it. They follow that immediately with one of my favorite scenes in the movie now, which is the extended Amazons defending the box.
You can tell that Zack Snyder loves the Amazons.
Oh, he does. He loves them so much. And the Amazons defending the box was, I think it ran almost 12 minutes.
Yeah.
That is
twice as long.
Yeah.
Twice as long as the Whedon version, yes.
Yeah, and it is a spectacle. I mean, to where they are putting, you have no doubt that they put up, it wasn't like they were just brushed aside. They put up a hell of a fight. And the whole complex, the building that even stored that thing is gone. And Steppenwolf keeps on coming, and it is brutal. I mean, Amazons are going down, and it is not pretty. To where he finally gets the box before the Gandalf and the horsemen right over the hill. And well, come on, there's some, and that scene was fantastic. I thought, and what'd you think?
I loved that Hippolyta actually had. Because there were people that were left inside the building in the Whedon cut. You had those slightly bigger Amazon women that had really great abs that had the hammers.
They were the abs. Yeah.
Yeah, and she seals them in with the Parademons, and in the Snyder cut she actually looks back with like this look that she regrets what she has to do, and she mourns their loss. It's like she acknowledges that, yes, I just sealed a bunch of my sisters in there with the Parademons, and they're probably not going to make it out. Right. I thought that was a great little 2-second thing that should have, why would you cut that?
Right.
The whole scene with Hippolyta and her sisters, trying to keep that mother box away from Steppenwolf. Let's say there's something also very different physically about Steppenwolf in this movie. He doesn't have the proportions of a human being.
No.
He's not just a generic human figure with horns on his head. He is a full-on fantasy creature
Right.
in this.
Right.
And so when he does things to the Amazons, to me, it's more believable because you're obviously not looking at somebody that's limited by the human physiology.
No.
So yeah, but that whole scene and you know, of course, Wonder Woman's theme, which is also sort of the Amazons theme, is a remix, if you will, of the music from 300.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
that he was definitely trying to get people to think of the Spartans from his movie when Diana first shows up in Batman v Superman, and also here. It's like these are the the remnants of that era.
Right.
You know, fighting for us.
Yep.
But yeah, that whole thing, you know, the whole temple where the mother box was in, crumbles into the sea. It was just, you know, great set piece, and that was really awesome to watch.
Yeah. Then they followed that. One of the other scenes I watched again was the flashback scene. Well, let's get into it. Steppenwolf is completely different in this case. He is not a standalone villain. He is a lieutenant with esteem issues.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, he is trying to impress his boss and
Well, his uncle. His uncle.
Well, there you go.
Steppenwolf is the nephew of Darkseid, and you know, Darkseid also has a couple other family members in his, you know, his little gang.
Right.
That I didn't see, but yes, there was this, and yeah, that battle. I did have a little bit of an issue with how that battle went.
Were we talking about the flashback battle where you have
the flashback battle
with Zeus and Ares and a lantern? I don't know who the bow lady was.
Artemis. Yeah,
that was Artemis.
Yeah.
And by the way, which was different because they are not fighting Steppenwolf in that fight.
Right.
They are fighting Darkseid. Which is a whole different narrative for when Diana's narrating, and I know some people are complaining. It's like, oh, they should have had someone narrate. It's like, look, you can't have Ian McKellen do all the narrations.
I think she did fine. I honestly,
no, she's fine. No, she's
fine,
absolutely fine. Why complain? You know, why pick? Because it was a different fight, and it was longer.
Yeah.
But what was your problem with the fight?
Darkseid himself, if you're familiar at all with the character in the comics, in a fight like that, would just be standing there with his arms crossed, and everybody else would be doing all the work. And anything that he couldn't, anything that he would have to do, he would do with his Omega beams, which we saw very little of in the film. But he's not this, you know, grabbing an axe and, you know, being all barbarous. He is a very sophisticated, you know, ruler.
Right.
And he does it. He seldom gets his hands dirty. One of the things that, if you've seen him in cartoons and things like that, he hates getting physical, and because if he has to get physical, that means that his plan has somehow not gone the way it was supposed to. Like when Superman physically challenges him, he's that's an affront to his being.
Gotcha.
You know, so there was that. But I mean, the average moviegoer isn't going to know this.
Nope, they're not going to know.
It's fine.
And to be fair, I will admit right now, I did not know either.
Yeah. So yeah, and also that he was grievously wounded by, of all people, Ares, who is the villain in the Wonder Woman movie. I thought was a very cool thing. At the same time, it lets you know that Darkseid can be affected physically.
Right.
You know, and a lot of people don't know this, but Darkseid actually may seem like a Thanos ripoff to a lot of people, but Darkseid actually predates Thanos by about 3 years in publication history. Thanos is actually the Marvel version of Darkseid.
Yeah.
But because but everybody thinks probably it's the opposite because we saw Thanos first. But yeah, they have very similar goals.
Yep.
Thanos wanted to delete half of all sentient life, whereas Darkseid, his big prize is this thing called the anti-life equation, which would give him control over all living things. And it's a similar kind of cosmic, goal.
Got it.
But that fight, there was a little bit more of the Green Lantern, I think, in that.
Who ends up dying? The alien Green Lantern. Not exactly sure why he would be an alien here, but whatever.
Okay.
Who knows?
Okay. A little bit, tiny little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
The Green Lanterns the classic Green Lantern Corps divided the universe up into 28 sectors.
Okay.
3,000 sectors. The Green Lantern of Earth is actually the guardian of Sector 2814.
Oh, okay.
And so there are other planets in that sector. So it's just a representative of that sector.
Got it.
Tomar Ray, for example, was the Green Lantern that preceded Hal Jordan, the one that a lot of people remember. And that alien happened to look a lot like Tomar Ray. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they stuck that in there, because I think Warner Brothers kind of wants people to forget about the Ryan Reynolds movie.
Yeah, including Ryan Reynolds is the biggest critic himself, as you know.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel bad, but at the same time, I'm kind of mixed. I mean, it's like, could they have eventually worked a Green Lantern in? Except the Green Lantern, as you know, and not to get too geeky here, but he's got Green Lanterns, depending on which comic you're looking at, have way more power than it's not this limited thing. Green Lanterns can do a lot of stuff, and anyway, it's fine.
They're as powerful in their own way as Superman is.
Oh yeah.
So if you have a team with a Green Lantern and Superman on it, what's everybody else going to be doing?
Yeah. I mean, as it was, and we'll get to the end. The criticism that Batman at the end fight, well, he wasn't doing much, but he had his opening, which was, look, he was the guy that got you in there. And he's still the orchestrator. He was the guy that got the team together, and the reason why people relate to Batman, as you know, is like he doesn't really have any superpowers except, of course, of being rich, which I think they probably could have still left that line out, but whatever. But I didn't mind the fight sequence only because it was an amazing spectacle, because it was a Lord of the Rings fight sequence. It was the Atlanteans jumping off the boat. It's like, oh, where have I seen that one before?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, are we back in 2003?
Aragorn and the Undead Army getting off the boat.
That was
totally projecting.
Absolutely, and he made nods to all sorts of little things in this, which I loved. And I don't know if you caught it, even to the Bryan Singer Superman, where people were pissed off that he had a kid, where Lois opens up the drawer and there's a pregnancy test in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, I see what you did. That's all you're going to see is a pregnancy test. We are taking it no further than that.
That's a mistake if they go that route.
I mean, but I was, I won't get into it too much. I was a fan. I watched the Superman Returns thing because it was such a nod to, you and I have talked about this.
It's a love letter to the Donner film.
It was. I saw it 3 weekends in a row.
Man.
I mean, it's like, if that's what it was. I was rereading a love letter to the Donner thing, and I still to this day think him saving that airplane, and that when they were introducing him, it's like, that's a great intro to Superman, because it's so cliche. Plane, man screwing up something. It's a train or a plane or whatever. The plane's going down. And he's gonna save it. It's busting up, and he's gonna land it right in the middle of a baseball game during a pop fly.
Yep, it's a harrowing scene with, and I love the physics of it.
Yeah. Like, the wings are breaking off. He can't figure it out. It's like,
he has to get in front of it.
Yeah, he has to get in front of it. You think he's got it, and like, nope, he doesn't have it. Anyway. Let's go into some of the other characters. They didn't have to expand on the Aquaman thing very much. I thought the girls singing was kind of an interesting twist. I was kind of hypnotized by that for a little while.
Yeah, and smelling his shirt on the left and stuff. The idea that maybe he has some groupies there.
Oh yeah, he definitely has groupies, and why wouldn't he?
Exactly.
He was probably the most. Well, I shouldn't say that, because everyone was pretty beefy in this. I mean, Henry Cavill, I was trying to figure out, it's like, who's more ripped, Henry or Momoa.
It's funny because if you had told me years ago, and you had told me, handed up a picture of Jason Momoa, and said, which DC superhero is this guy gonna play, I would have said, well, hands down, Lobo.
Oh yeah,
if you'd said Aquaman, I would have been like, he doesn't look anything like Aquaman. Aquaman is Wonder Bread.
Oh yeah,
he,
blonde,
he
cropped hair.
yeah, and he has one of the most unique color coordination costumes ever. It's orange and green and yellow,
Yeah,
and no other superhero has that color combination.
right.
That's why I'm convinced that he makes it into all the teams, because he's a great, otherwise everything would be red and blue, and
Yeah.
and he brings in orange and green. But in the 90s, they did this thing where a couple different writers, mostly Peter David, I believe, started transforming Aquaman from this joke of a superhero character into more of a badass, more of an aquatic warlord. They even had him lose one of his hands, and he replaced it with this harpoon hook thing to make him look more dangerous. And I liked that they retained a lot of that with the Momoa version. Obviously, he isn't missing his hand, but they make sure that he had the quindent, to show how dangerous he was, and having him, poke. Euphemistically poke Steppenwolf at the end, and skewer him like a shish kebab. I thought was a pretty good use of that thing. That's what you want to see him do with that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, I watched, because because I've been inspired by this movie. I watched Aquaman yesterday, I think. And I will watch the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman on HBO Max. By the way, it's the only place you can get it right now. And I
have it on Blu-ray.
Nice. That's the only. It's the only place right now that. Well, I mean, I get it. What I'm getting is also another reason why this cut was allowed is because HBO Max is another streaming service is trying to get into the game. Mm-hmm. And they are taking control of all the DC stuff. They were the ones that released Wonder Woman 1984, and which we have talked about. And again, you want to see an intro to Wonder Woman in a movie? Watch the terrorist scene in the Justice League.
I much prefer Zack Snyder's take on Wonder Woman than what's her face, Patty Jenkins.
Yeah. I mean, Wonder Woman. When you watch Wonder Woman take out, and I mean the guys that weren't in a coma from her fight were dead. Exactly. Compared to her just disabling guys in a mall, in all her bright Technicolored glory. It's just not the same. It's not the same animal. And I know there's some people. It's like, well, I like my superheroes lighter and fluffier. It's like, yeah, it's not that kind of world.
Well, the thing about that scene that I liked is it shows the dichotomy of Diana and the Amazons. They are brutally violent, but then they'll stop and they'll get down on one knee and talk to a little girl very softly and gently, and that's how they are. They're actually very well-rounded people.
Exactly.
They're not they're not piecemeal at all.
Exactly. Or they will kill you with their abs. I could not stop staring at the Temple girl's abs, and I don't know if they were CGI'd in or if they actually just got freaking physical fitness bodybuilders and put Amazon garb on them. Because
my sister-in-law is a pro-am female bodybuilder, and she looks just like those gals in her competition pictures, and so I mean she's I think they recruited from gyms and stuff. All you are is an extra. Yeah. You don't have to really do
no dialogue, just swing the freaking hammer.
Exactly, in slow motion. Well, we'll make it slow motion.
Yeah, we'll make it slow motion. By the way, and I know I keep comparing this to the Red Letter Media guys because they hate everything, and they just pick on stuff all. I also watched the Critical Drinkers take on this. And I don't think Mahler is going to finish his review on it until the sun burns out. The rate he's going with his stuff. It's like, I'm sorry. It's like, what was the last thing he did? The Force Awakens review part 3, man. And it's 4 hours long. Like, dude. I realize he is the finest reviewer in the history of reviewers. Hollywood should have hired him years ago. To dissect, if you want to make a smart, flawless, plot-driven movie, you have to have him in the room. But, my God, if he doesn't like your movie, you are going to hear about it. And it's not going to be short. He's going to, I mean, for God's sakes, the Force Awakens was 2 hours long, and he's done like 12 hours on it so far. I've never seen it. Anyway. So, but I'm sorry, the Red Letter Media guys, they're complaining about the slow mo. Zack Snyder loves slow mo, and it makes the movie even longer. And I lost count of how many slow mo scenes there were, even aside from the Flash, which has to be done in slow mo. By the way, sorry, just backtrack really really fast because we glossed over it for a second. That thing where you're saying that he actually burst through his shoes. But yeah, absolutely right. Damn right, he would burst through his freaking shoes. In fact,
that's why he has to have a suit made out of material made from the space shuttle.
Yeah, the space shuttle was, and that was fine. Anyway, let's talk about because I've got the characters put up on the screen here. Let's do it really quick. So Aquaman, we knew pretty much him. The Aquaman movie pretty much set him up anyway. And I watched it again, made a lot more sense. And if they ever did anything in the future, he could do a sequel to Aquaman. He's fine. Wonder Woman. I thought they did a nice job with her. Let's talk about Cyborg real quick.
I love the fact that he was playing football, the Gotham Knights versus the Milwaukee Badgers.
Yes, and so did Red Letter Media.
Yeah,
they caught that, and apparently that was their second choice. They were going to do it in Green Bay, and I think they were going to make it more of a pro thing. But then they realized there was their joke. It's like, yeah, but Green Bay is just a stadium and like 500 bars.
Exactly. Yeah. If you look at Green Bay, it's not. It doesn't have a skyline the same way that Chicago or other places do. Yeah.
But so he was a college football player, and a very good one, a quarterback. And a champion, but couldn't get the love, his attention of his scientist father. That whole song and dance.
Yeah.
But gets hurt in a car accident when he's arguing with his mom about what the family's gonna end up being like, and gets horribly hurt. And then the box transforms him into Cyborg, which
Yeah. The scene where Miles Dyson, I forget the character's name.
Let's just call him Miles Dyson.
Yeah, Miles Dyson. The scene where Miles Dyson is given the news about that his wife has died and that his son is about to die, and he goes in to see him, and that was, like, you definitely feel something in that scene. Yeah. It's like, again, the guys I was watching it with were like, why would you cut that?
Right.
But. That's an example of what I say when I say that the Whedon cut cuts the heart and soul out of the film, because a big part of that heart and soul is Cyborg and his story.
Right.
And they actually made him more than just an Iron Man clone. I think Iron Man is what everybody thought of in the Whedon cut. In this one, he's this cybernetic entity that perceives information through the internet differently, and that kind of stuff. I loved that, the inclusion of that.
Yeah, he's kind of like a cross between Iron Man and the Lawnmower Man. That's what he is.
Yes.
I mean, he can access I don't think it was necessarily heavy-handed, but they were giving him a lot of weight, saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, you own the internet. You own own technology. You can do you could collapse civilization if you wanted to. You could take all the nuclear launch codes and fire them all off, and destroy everything." And so it's it was their way of saying, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's like,
right.
I get it. And what's he do? He gives a single mother that's struggling, gives her a second chance, which was very touching, actually. I
agree.
I thought that was well done. He does small things in different places. It's like, okay, does that become a slippery slope? And then, because shouldn't he be, looking, what does he do with atrocities? But that's another story for another time.
Right.
But yeah, it was great, and his suit was redone. He did, was flying kind of like an Iron Man.
Yeah.
His weapon system, I was a little. I mean, I know it was part of the scene, but when Superman's X-ray vision activated his weapon system and he didn't have control of it, it's like, oh, I really. He couldn't override that. But then again, that's a geek argument that.
It shot a freeze ray at him, I believe.
Was that what it was? I mean, it was blue. Yeah, 'cause
it was blue, and it basically just made Superman wet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought it was basically like a cold
But he
weapon
did
or
feel
something.
it. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't like he just shrugged it off. He actually felt it, which I thought was interesting. Well, let's go to that. So let's so they you know they have to they're gonna by the way, the fight sequences, the internal strife was removed.
Right.
The
It was. The Pet Cemetery references were removed as well. I was happy about that.
Yeah, there is no fighting, there is no infighting anymore with the Justice League.
Right.
That's all gone. No one's punching anything. No one's breaking anything. That's gone. And so they work together. I mean, there's disagreements. You know, like when they're gonna revive Superman. They're gonna bring him back to life. And it was an interesting, you know, where they're doing the countdown, and Aquaman wants to back out. Barry's not sure. Wonder Woman's just frozen. Batman's like, do it, do it, do it. And that's when you see that first nod real fast, which is that and again, they didn't even have to say anything, that the Flash can turn back time.
Right.
Briefly.
He says time does weird things the faster I go.
Yeah, because the box. Yeah, I was watching this. Wait, why is the box in the water already? And then it's like, oh, I see what you did there. And I had forgotten about it, but it was tucked away in the back of my head. It's like, will he get a chance to use that later? And but I didn't even until it actually happened. Then I it's like, oh yeah, the box. Now I see where they made the connection. The fight sequence, where it was basically the Justice League versus Superman, was
it isn't much of a fight.
No, it wasn't not much of a fight. You know, you realize that Zack Snyder's version is that Superman can basically run the show anytime he wants, and everyone should be very afraid of him.
Well, they go ahead.
Well, at all times, where it's like, you know, Aquaman is very strong, Wonder Woman extremely strong, and didn't matter. I mean, all these guys combined were no match for him. That fight sequence really didn't change much.
No,
they
changed the music. They changed the music.
Yes,
they did. They excluded the John Williams Superman score from it.
Right.
And they retained my favorite part of the whole movie, and that is when Flash realizes that he is not safe at warp speed.
Yep. Yeah. And by the way,
Superman.
that's also a social media thing. Everyone loved that scene because it was something no one, you know, it's a geek argument which most people don't even get into, which is Superman's running at hyper speed. How does he really compare? And again, you know, they removed the Flash race scene at the end, the collector's plate based on the I don't remember what year that was when they raced, you know, a long time ago. But yeah, where Flash is running on the outside and Superman's clocking him, and then he breaks all off. And I think they extended that a little bit where he's punching at him, and yeah, he's slower than the Flash, but not by a lot.
Not by a lot.
And to where Flash is in real trouble. You know, it's like, you know, whatever plan you had as the Flash just fell apart instantly, and you're just like, oh man, I am in real. I don't even know how to get out of this. And it was lucky, you know, as he came out with his life.
Well, it's such a well done moment because, of course, he's running very confidently at Superman, trying to get around him to see what he can do, and all of a sudden you see Superman's eyes move and follow, and the look on Flash's face is like,
it was brilliant.
I'm in a lot of trouble.
He's there's nothing you can do. The extended version, you know, they changed the whole ending of that. You know, Lois wasn't this secret weapon at all. The bringing in the big guns, that's gone. That's all gone. She was always there because, and they built that up, and I saw that coming, which was she's delivering coffee to the memorial. She is missing him. She's always there. And when Batman, I thought that was well done. You know, they added the whole reactive bracers thing to where that well done. It's like Superman's going to kill you. All right. There's no dialogue. There's no back and forth.
There's no "do you bleed" line with a fake mustache.
Yeah. No, you are gonna die as Batman. You are going down, and he's not gonna hit you. He is just gonna incinerate you. And he hits him with the first heat blast to where the bracer basically overheats, and it's like, throw that one off. He survives a second blast, And Lois, just happens to be in the right place at the right time, and it's like they get out of there, which I thought was great. And then that kind of leads up to eventually the let's throw in one more thing here. The extended Atlantean defense of the box really wasn't that extended. It was just more violent. No.
Right.
Where Steppenwolf is cutting people in half. He's lopping off limbs, and it's done in a fairly tasteful way where you can see there is blood in the water. And he just gets in because there's not that many guards. I mean, it's not this organized defense. The Amazons took it way more seriously than the Atlanteans did. And there's no fish involved. I mean, I suppose you could have really, now that Arthur's king, now he probably could have. I mean, given the resources he had, he could have stopped Steppenwolf. But that's now. That's not then. So now they launched their final assault on the Steppenwolf dome, and they're going to bust this whole thing up. And that was done in a different. They changed some of it, but not a lot of it. To where Batman, takes point. He takes out the shield. I thought his ship would have been a little more damaged, but that's fine. We can live with that. Gets in his Batmobile and starts shooting things up. That was shot a little bit differently. And then everyone, rushes in to help, except for Superman, because Superman hadn't quite gotten around to, the whole thing. I thought, by the way, the scene where Superman, while they're doing that, Superman shows up and meets Alfred for the first time.
Right, in his black outfit.
With his black outfit, yes. Where, again, you walk through, I know, that montage where Superman's in his ship and he has outfits to choose from. Which was also interesting because some of those outfits were from issues of comics that no one's ever seen.
Right.
And when
the blue one was there, he just didn't take it.
Yeah, the blue one was there, and you had that nice kind of back and forth between Jor-El and Kevin Costner. Well, just going back and forth and talking to him, alternating advice. Right. Which was kind of cool, and then he heads off to help in the fight. Meanwhile, everybody else is struggling. They're Steppenwolf, you can tell, is still very, very strong, and he's it's a back and forth type fight. They're getting their licks in, and then Superman shows up, and. It's even. I thought the original cut, it was that he was overpowered, not compared to this thing. This thing. It's like
he lets him hit him with the axe.
Yeah. It's like
does it make a difference?
He hits him, by the way, in the same shoulder as Thor. Yeah, I think a little nod there, hitting Thanos.
Darkseid too. I think Darkseid got hit with an axe by Ares in the same shoulder.
Yeah. And then Superman gets hit, doesn't even get. Nothing happens to him. He says not impressed. Super freezes the axe with his breath, and then just shatters it. And this isn't even a fight, right? He's right. It is bad. He's just going to mess him up. There is nothing going to happen. However, now I'm losing my place as far as how the order of things, how it happened. The boxes were going to sink. Cyborg's trying to keep the boxes from sinking, and they do sink. And the world, as soon as the boxes get synced, the world gets leveled. Everything gets. And I was trying to figure out the visuals on this. Did the planet actually get destroyed, or is it just clean slated? Whatever.
I think the surface is destroyed. I think that's what it works.
Yeah, I mean, really bad. But and Flash notices it just as it's happening. He goes into his timey-wimey zone.
Yep.
and he realizes what he has to do, which is, and he says it, I've got to go faster than the speed of light. And that's all he had to say. That's all I have to say.
Right.
You don't have to go into freaking wormholes and quantum reduction and special suits and all this other stuff, Marvel.
Yeah.
That's all you had to do is one guy. And
I liked how the land was forming with each step as he got closer to the event.
Yeah.
It's like he was undoing the
that was awesome. And he the question was, did he do that before they killed Steppenwolf? Or no, it was before he killed.
No, it was before. Yeah, because the last thing they do is send his severed
Yeah.
head.
Oh, yeah. So let's get into that. So Flash turns back time because he doesn't have to do it much. He's only turning back less than 30 seconds.
Right.
He and it takes a lot of effort. I mean, look, he is Mercury. He is Hermes. He is a Greek god at that point.
Exactly.
And he turns back time. Probably the only Greek god with an esteem problem.
Well, to be fair, Hermes and Mercury weren't actually a god. They were the messenger.
There
of
you
the
go.
gods.
There you go. This is why I talk to you. You're absolutely right. And those who don't realize who that is, it's the swoosh on the Nike shoes. That's where it's from. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he runs back in, turns back time, touches Cyborg when he's supposed to, generates the electrical charge. Cyborg uses his special cybernetic abilities, goes in. It's not that drawn out, where he figures out a way to defeat the computer, but they don't do it in a complicated way that's going to lose the audience. They personify it. The cube, Superman then jumps in. They break the cubes apart like they did in the first the Whedon version, and there's no dialogue about blowback and how much my toes hurt.
Yeah,
and it's this other stuff where Superman's actually saying "ow," any of that stuff. No, none of that. It just they're thrown apart, and then Steppenwolf finally gets his, and very different from Marvel. It's like
very different.
Superman gives him a hell of a punch
after he mollywops him.
After he is stabbed through the back with Aquaman's trident, and then and I love the red letter reaction to this because they were watching, and I knew it. I actually knew it the second she jumped in the air. I go, oh, she's gonna do it, isn't she? And she takes her sword, and as he's going through the wormhole or the Stargate, whatever it is, she decapitates him. and for the first, and you don't see this very often, to where the villain's body and his head show up separately in front of the Darkseid character, and he just pissed off crushes the head with his foot. Brilliant. Absolutely freaking brilliant. So decisive.
The portal that was created in the comics is called a boom tube. It was created by Jack Kirby. And one of the things that I loved about that moment when we saw Darkseid as Entourage, you obviously we saw Desaad earlier in the film. He was the one that was originally talking to Steppenwolf about how the Master has commanded you to conquer 50,000 worlds. And that's your penance, and it's not an exaggeration.
No,
it's like a literal thing. And then so Desaad is there, and also there is a woman there with short gray hair, and I was geeking out over that because that had to be none other than Granny Goodness, Granny Goodness is a henchman of Darkseid's, and her job is to essentially torture people until they break, and then retrain them as soldiers of Darkseid.
Nice.
So if what we see in the nightmares is actually something that comes to pass, Granny Goodness will be heavily involved in the plot of that story.
Okay, so Darkseid says that I'm going to do it old school. And him and the Jaffa are going to apparently just travel manually to Earth, and they'll get there later sometime and attack them flat straight up. Even though I think he'd be a little more intimidated by the fact that you've got, I don't know, the Atlantean King, a Kryptonian, Mercury, a super Amazon. I mean, this all-star cast could give the original fight guys, Ares and obviously a run for their money, if not take them out.
Right.
But he's going to do it anyway. And there's this big, the wonderful heroic scene where they're all standing up as the sun is setting. And, they're standing up there and it's a great shot, where they're going over everyone's faces and you can tell it's like, yeah, job well done, and go to black. And that's the end. However, and let's get into this for 1 sec, and then we'll do, the little callback Easter eggs. Then they go to epilogue. Well, I had the same opinion that everybody else did on the epilogue, which is, okay, look, you told Zack that he could have creative license. You weren't paying him, and he could do any sort of thing you want. Because you remember the old dream. Wait, was the dream sequence in Batman v Superman? Yes,
it was.
Okay, yeah. So the dream sequence from Batman v Superman is expanded on here, where Batman has another dream, but of course you don't know that right in the beginning, but you know what you're looking at if you watched any of the stuff. I'm going to watch the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman maybe today. Because it's 3 hours and something. It's like, well, might as well check this thing out now that I paid for HBO Max. I've also been watching Doom Patrol. That's an interesting little movie. It's like Brendan Fraser. All right, so, yeah, sure. Why the hell not? Yeah. I could watch
an acquired taste.
I could watch a show where Brendan swears every 10 minutes. So they go to epilogue, and you could, spoiler for anybody out there, if you want to stop the movie when the epilogue screen comes up, feel free. You'll probably be a better person for it. Because it is, and you probably know it, you probably appreciated it more than I did and a lot of people, because it is way out there. The cast that's walking around the post-apocalyptic America, the desert world that we saw in Batman v Superman, is an interesting bunch. It's Batman, and I thought it's not Deadeye, it's somebody else.
Deathstroke the Terminator.
Okay. And we won't even get into him talking to Lex Luthor early on. It's like,
here, I want to stop for just a moment and talk about that character briefly.
Okay.
Deadpool is a parody of Deathstroke. A lot of people don't know this. What is Deadpool's real name?
I don't know.
It's Wade Wilson.
Oh, okay.
Right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe you didn't see Deadpool. Maybe.
No. I saw both of them, but I didn't remember his name was Wade Wilson.
Deathstroke the Terminator's real name is Slade Wilson.
Right.
So that is, and Deathstroke came obviously before Deadpool did. So I just want to let you know that there's some significance to that character, above and beyond what's on the page and what's on the screen. So,
all right.
But go on.
He. I mean, it's like, because I was looking at it, it's like, wait, why didn't they use Will Smith? It's like, he's not the same guy, and it's not. It's
Deadshot. He played Deadshot.
Yeah, Deadshot. What's the difference between Slade and Deadshot?
Well, Deadshot is just a hitman. He basically likes to kill people with weapons that are mounted on his wrists. Right. And he's got like a scope for an eye on his mask. He has both of his eyes, but he's just a hitman.
So
that's what he is.
What's Wade do?
Wade is
same thing, right?
He's sort of. He is highly skilled. He's like a Batman level or just underneath Batman level guy, and he primarily terrorizes the Teen Titans. He's one of their number one villains.
That's what I thought. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I had heard this from somebody else too. By the way, remind me before we shut this thing off that I want to tell you about Rich Evans, how geeky he is. Because Rich Evans, because you look, you can stack up next to anyone when it comes to lore, no question. So, the other people in the group were, was it Mira?
Mira, yeah, British accent Mira.
Okay, well, all right. So she Atlantean in that group. Okay, that's fine with her British accent. Yes.
Yes.
The Flash in his armor that looked exactly like the armor that he used to talk to Batman in Batman v Superman. The time travel, his special time travel armor, but we won't get into that. And then who else? Oh, and
Cyborg,
who looked a little worse for wear. And the Joker.
Marilyn Manson, yeah.
Marilyn Manson was there, played by Jared Leto, which is weird because they're both musicians. And he's being basically held hostage. He's there to guide them to something, and he talks for quite a while. And Batman and he are doing this back and forth for an extended period of time. And some fans, and which was, I'm not going to say misleading because that's what used for part of the trailer. A lot of people are like, oh, the Joker's in it. But when you got it at the end, it's like, yeah, but what does it mean? And can it be built off of anything? Because at this point, the DC universe, that part of it is still very, very disorganized. And I don't know. Plus, there's a new Batman. I mean, Ben Affleck is not going to be the Batman anymore. And it's...
Well, there's some news about that as well.
Tell me, is that actually going to happen again?
Well, that the idea being that they don't... Warner Brothers made a statement. The guy at Warner made a statement a couple of months ago that said that we have no problem with having 2 or 3 different versions of Batman concurrently in theaters. So
okay,
and he's like, he says we're not building a universe anymore. We're building a multiverse, is what he says. So,
translation, we don't have. It's like that's the only way we're going to be able to finish anything at this point.
Yeah, we have no plan.
So Robert Pattinson is going to be the standalone Batman, but potentially Ben Affleck's going to be in the Justice League again.
Yeah, as their version of Batman, yes.
All right. So, and that's how the movie doesn't quite end there. There is a scene which is, as you know, one of the most tacked on things ever, where Martian Manhunter, not green Martian Manhunter, even though on my wall he is green, because Zach likes shades of black. The black version of Martian Manhunter meets Bruce Wayne at his house, and I just chalked it up as like, well, apparently a lot of time has passed because Bruce looks way different. It's like, yeah, I know Ben went through a breakup and he's on a different diet now, and he looked like he had lost 50 pounds.
He's definitely skinnier.
Yeah, with the red letter guy said apparently he's going through chemotherapy in this cut because he was way thinner in this. But he meets Martian Manhunter and is like, okay, and he's like, oh, I'm with you type of thing. And he was with them, but he didn't bother to show up. He met Lois Lane, disguised himself as decided to disguise himself as Martha Kent to meet Lois Lane, but he's using the voice of the military general from the first 2 Superman movies. So it's like, okay, was he always the military general? Was he also him?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Is that one of his identities? And by the way, the military general, if you didn't already know, you and I talked about this, I think, which was he was the guy that got caught on radio saying that he was the guy that was the acting coach for Obama.
Oh, man.
And he got caught saying that, and there were people talking to him, and he completely backtracked. He's like, yeah, we're not talking about this. Because he was saying, Obama's getting all this credit. He's such a great public speaker, and he finally just snapped and said, look, I'm the guy that taught him everything. He was when you're talking to Obama, you're talking to me. And, anyway.
I do want to point out that the Martian Manhunter was green. It's just that in the lighting that Snyder used, his lighting choices made him look not green in a lot of moments.
So
you're forgiven for thinking
whatever. And Superman's suit the lighting just made it look black.
Exactly.
Like it was shades of freaking black. The hero's stance at the end. There's a reason why, by the way. I'm looking at the Zack Snyder, some of the shots in Google Images. Oh, by the way, you heard the rumor that at one point. Okay, let's talk about a couple other things real fast. Which is we'll get into the Rich Evans thing in one sec. I don't want to drag this out too much. Which is the ratio. Go ahead. It's 4-3.
Yes.
You knew this. And you probably dug into why. You were probably one of the first people to go on the internet. It's like, what the hell is with the 4-3 ratio?
Yeah, intended for IMAX. And when they
Yes.
do that, they cut down the image to make it fit a letterbox or a regular TV in different media. It's the best format to go with to hit all of the ways the film can be presented.
Right, including poor people television. Let's
Right.
call it what it is. But the IMAX thing, it's like, I thought that was a little much. It's like, yeah, I don't know how many people are going to be doing IMAX anytime soon.
Yeah.
But I had also heard the rumor that he was, and maybe they just shut him down. It's like that he was going to shoot it in black and white, and the Red Letter Media guys said the word that I have never ever heard them say: pretentious. It's like because every director, I don't know what it is. It's like going all the way back to 16 Candles, right? Where he's asking his friends to shoot a picture of him with the hot girl in the back of the car. And all of a sudden, it's like, you know what would really make this black and white? It's like, oh, yeah. It's like every director wants to, because it, I don't know what, maybe you can explain it to me. What is their fascination with freaking black and white? It's like, because the essence is pure, if there's no color distracting from anything.
There is something to it. I mean, there's also just the gravitas that black and white brings. Some of the, you think about black and white films, you think of the great movies like, that were filmed in black and white.
Sure.
Offhand, I can't think of any, but I mean,
well, all the old ones.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, like Frankenstein's monster, for example,
Right.
was obviously filmed in black and white. Dracula, all the monster movies. Citizen Kane, black and white.
Right.
But it's what's funny is that shooting with black and white film is really hard to do right now because of the scarcity of black and white film. And so what they would have to do most of the time is just film in color and then remove the color digitally, which doesn't have the same effect. I mean, one of the most brilliant films that was filmed in black and white using black and white film instead of the other method was Young Frankenstein. Mel Brooks actually got these old guys who worked on, like the original Frankenstein and a few other old films from Universal, and brought them like out of retirement. They were these old men, and they got a hold of a limited quantity of black and white film to shoot that movie. So when you see Young Frankenstein, even though it's a parody, even though it's a comedy, it's filmed in that style. And I think because you can't really do it anymore as easily as you could in years past. I think that's one of the reasons why they're fascinated by it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I mean, he was thinking of doing it, and he didn't, and I was glad he didn't.
These characters need color.
Yes, they do. The 4:3 aspect ratio, and I didn't even know ahead of time. I tried not to read into the plot at all. I listened to some reviews, but it's tough to give spoilers on something like that, even though we're talking about it, because it doesn't do it justice, for lack of a better word. I was like Peanut Gallery was. He's like, oh no, I'm not really that into it. I'm going, give it time. I go, it is, because he thought the same thing. It's like, it's just another director's cut. It's like, no, it is not.
Very different film.
It is a very different film.
It reveals the thought process behind the people in charge at Warner Brothers too. That's another thing. It's that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. The Red Letter Media guys, really, they were, because they do, they're huge film buffs. If they had their way, they'd be in freaking Hollywood now. Which is, they had the same opinion you did. And it's like all of a sudden you realize it's not what was put back in, it's what they ripped out to make their version of it. It's like once Zack Snyder left, they gutted that film. And thought they could pull it off. They must have been this conversation. It's like, hey, Joss, do you think you could turn this into a 2-hour movie and make sense? Yeah, sure. Totally can do it. It's like, no, you could not.
No, and I don't blame Joss Whedon for taking the job. I also don't like to levy full blame of the status of the theatrical cut on Joss, because, quite frankly, it would have been better just to say, you know what, film your own movie from scratch.
Yeah, start over. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
He should have just done his own thing, because, it would have cost him more money, no question. And they didn't want to throw away. That's the other thing, which is, you realize how I've never seen a movie, and maybe it'll never ever happen again. That's why we're doing this, in my opinion, which is this is something that this never happens, which is it's not
Right.
just a do-over. You're watching a movie that was built, torn down, built again. And the previous one was torn down, was ripped out. And, I mean, the total cost of this thing, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
The amount of producers that had to get in on this sucker at the end. And again, Zack watching his film, and he never did see it, apparently. They told him, his friends, Christopher Nolan and he are friends, apparently. Mm-hmm. And they were the ones. And I saw, by the way, a little nod to Christopher Nolan in that opening terrorist sequence, which was expanded. Which was, them going in there, it felt, I was like, oh, am I watching a Christopher Nolan movie? But Christopher Nolan and his wife, Zack Snyder's wife, told him, it's like, yeah, don't ever watch this. Not in its entirety. You can watch scenes, of course, but we will tell you, it's like, look, we need this removed, this removed, this removed, because I think Zack probably would have lost his mind.
Probably would have, yeah. I mean, when you eat, breathe, and sleep filmmaking.
Yeah.
That's just. But the other thing about the Snyder Cut that's significant is that it came about because fans wanted to see it.
Yes.
And they had to overcome not just a studio that didn't want to put it out, but also an aggressive, antagonistic geek media.
Yeah.
I mean, there's montages you can find on YouTube of people declaring, look, stop talking about the Snyder Cut. There is no Snyder Cut, they said. And then all of a sudden, AT&T
then there was.
And then all of a sudden there was. And then you had little things like the actor who did the motion capture for Darkseid.
Yeah.
He was I can't remember his name, but he was posting on Twitter a picture of what Darkseid was supposed to look like in the movie, and it's like a fully rendered shot from the fight, the big fight sequence.
Yeah.
And people are like, I think Twitter might have actually had him take it down or something like that, because the studio didn't want anybody knowing about that. And all of a sudden the cat was out of the bag, and there's like, okay, we can, and then AT&T comes into play. They're like, you know what? We like to make money. That's why we bought, Warner Brothers.
Right.
So we would like you to give these people what they want so that they will pay us money to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bray Porter was his name. That was the actor who did the motion capture for Darkseid.
Right.
He posted that on his Twitter. And the geek media, the comic book media, the entertainment media just has been beside itself that they were overstepped. That, it's kind of like I keep thinking of Rick Moranis, you went over my helmet, that kind of a moment, where all of a sudden the people who actually have the money said, get that cut of the movie out there for people to see it. They want to see it, and it's a perfect way of getting people to look at HBO MAX.
Oh yeah. Because Wonder Woman 1984 got you there for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, why the hell not? I mean, there were a lot of people that picked up HBO Max because of Wonder Woman 84, but after they watched it, they're like, I don't know if I'm going to keep it. This will keep you in it for a little bit longer. My personal recommendation, and then you can follow up and we can close this out in a little bit, which is, sure. Was it worth the $15 just for the month of HBO Max for me? Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm. I absolutely would have, because it's not what you think it is. Would you agree?
Right. I would agree. It's not like the director's cut of Terminator 2 where they inserted, as you said, X number of minutes of footage in. It's a completely different film.
Yeah.
Yes, there's some parallel scenes. Obviously, some of the same things happen. Superman gets resurrected, right. And the process is similar. But everything else about it, I mean, there's like I said, it's got its heart and soul reinserted.
Yeah. Yeah, the comedic stuff that fell flat, as Red Letter guys, we'll talk about that in one sec, which is the that fell flat, the $1 million jokes are all gone.
Yeah,
all gone. And again, I'm not going to pick on Joss Whedon. He gave the Avengers something that I don't know if anyone else could have at the time. And he's going to be I will always respect him for the Firefly thing. It's like the best series that the best and quickest series ever that died.
It was too good to last.
Yeah, too good to last. But as I was watching this, the longer you watch it, the more you realize it's like, holy smokes, it's not just some scenes. It's not, it's not like there's 2 hours tacked on to the existing 2 hours. No, it's 4 hours of basically original content.
Right.
And it's way, way different. You know, the storyline's way, way different. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Everything that I wanted fixed was fixed, which you did not get it. No one would, you never would have gotten a chance to do that in history. You know, they were smart enough to go to social media and look. It's like, okay, what are the top 20 things that people liked or didn't like? And anything that people bitched about, oh yeah, that's gone, which you never get a chance to do in media. You know, no focus group could have given you this. It was, again, for me, if I had to make any changes now, I would end the movie at the big hero scene at the end. We're all standing there proudly, you know, standing over their kills. And then I would save that massive epilogue for post credits. Right? It's like, you want it in there, fine. You have to watch the freaking credits, and then you're fine, because the rest of it, I don't think it's necessarily. But would you have changed anything?
I wouldn't have changed anything. Having that post the post credit sequence, you know, that would have been fine. But I tell you, that moment where Batman tells Jared Leto's Joker how Harley Quinn died.
Yeah.
And Joker stares at him for a good, long, uncomfortable time before starting to cackle to himself.
Yeah.
You know, he almost had me. That was a chilling moment.
Yeah.
I loved that. And it makes me it makes me want to see more of that Joker now as an adversary.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Leto got a fair shake. I think Suicide Squad also had a whole bunch of his material deleted from it too before it went to theaters.
Yeah.
And now, of course, we also have this other Joker film that came out, which is yet another splinter of the
which is why DC is basically like, you know what, let's just make it all and just say they're parallel, you know, universes. Because Joaquin Phoenix, he crushed it, absolutely crushed it. I mean, I still like Heath Ledger's better because of the context that it was in. It would have been interesting to see if Joaquin. Sorry, am I pronouncing that right?
I pronounce it Joaquin.
Okay, Joaquin. Sorry, Joaquin.
Yeah.
If Joaquin would have been facing a Batman, what would it have been like? And it's hard to say, but you know, Heath Ledger will always go down as my favorite at this point. But anyway, but I thought that Jared Leto I liked Suicide Squad. I did. I enjoyed it. Did it have its faults? Sure, but I thought it was this interesting, dark little film that Jared Leto, I think, was fine as a Joker in that. No,
you know, there's a persistent rumor that the Jared Leto version of Joker is actually a former Robin that was kidnapped and brainwashed by the original Joker.
That sounds like a comic book writer.
Yeah,
it's like of course. And why not?
Things like that have happened in the comics and the cartoons. So, you know, there is a way you could have the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. You know, because that happened in the '80s. That story.
Yeah.
You know, as an old man tormenting this Ben Affleck Batman, and then as his last thing, he basically, you know, continues his legacy by, you know, transforming one of his sidekicks into the new Joker.
Right.
That would be an interesting wrinkle, but I kind of, at this point, just prefer Leto to be the Joker.
Right. Yeah. Again, he's got a following. You know, maybe they can use that and tie it in and bring in Harley Quinn and not have her do an all-girl movie. I have not watched it, and it's there because I can get it for free now. And it's like, oh, do I want to watch it? Everybody hates it.
You could be doing something, you know, much better, like chewing gum, or you know, or maybe.
I am a Margot Robbie fan. I am. Although I gotta say that, you know, I still think Hugo Weaving's niece, would give her a run for her money any day of the week. But I have heard so many bad things about Birds of Prey that it's like, oh, I just don't want to do it. Anyway, so let's end with Easter eggs. Any cool little Easter eggs that we haven't talked about that you noticed that were callbacks to anything?
Well, I was pleased that Mark McClure retained a cameo. Mark McClure was the actor who played Jimmy Olsen in the Christopher Reeve films. And in the Whedon cut, he was a police officer at the police station. It was a scene that was created all by Whedon where the Flash drew glasses and a mustache on a guy at super speed, so he didn't even know it happened.
Yeah.
And the police officer behind the desk, started making fun of the guy after, he's like, what prescription are those? That kind of thing. But in the Snyder Cut, he is still there. He is the police officer that is at the memorial for Superman when the battle happens.
Oh, nice.
And it's his squad car that Batman gets thrown into.
And this was the Jimmy Olsen of the
Richard Donner films.
Oh, the Richard Donner films. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me, let me do an Easter egg from previous, an old Easter egg, not from this movie, was the Jimmy Olsen from the old Superman series. Right. Was, of course, put in this one already. He was the bartender in the Bryan Singer Superman Returns. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I thought was great.
Yeah, he was also had a cameo with the original redheaded Lois Lane in the Richard Donner Superman film that was cut from the theatrical cut, she saw him running on the train, but so that was the big Easter egg that I noticed. I'm like, oh, it's great that Kevin McClure got his scene is retained in this cut.
Got it.
So I thought that was neat.
The Easter egg that almost brought a tear to my eye, and I actually visibly clapped when I saw it. Like people
one of those guys.
which is the montage at the end where Batman was standing outside of the Bat Tank. Mm-hmm. And the Bat Tank, not that monstrous thing, and I knew exactly what it was. That was the Frank Miller tank from Dark Knight Returns in its classic pose, and it's like, oh, you did.
Yeah, that was a good one. He did something similar in Batman v Superman. There's a lightning shot where Batman briefly is seen, in the pose with the lightning bolt behind him, and he definitely likes Frank Miller. I mean, obviously Zack Snyder, his first big mega hit was 300, which is, I agree with you, the most accurate comic book to screen adaptation. The only thing that was different were the speedos that those guys were wearing.
Right. Exactly.
So,
okay, let me. I want to mention the Red Letter Media, the Rich Evans thing real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Sure. And we'll give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. Which is the ultimate geek moment that I saw when I was watching those guys review the movie is they were basically the two guys really knew how bad Rich Evans. He's such a huge geek, right? He pulls out. That's why they have him in there. They pull him in for references all the time. He doesn't even have to look anything up. He's just and they called it they divided the review into chapters like the movie did. And which I thought was good because you could break and get snacks. The screen goes black. It's like chapter 1, chapter, this and that. But one of their chapters was called, I think it was called Rich Evans Talks About Gorillas, right? And it's like,
yes.
And they basically challenged him and they said, I don't know how they even got into it. It's like, how many gorillas are there? I don't know where it came up. It's like, are there in the DC universe? Or primates, right?
Right. Yeah, it was originally gorillas, but he also mentioned monkeys.
Monkeys.
He named quite a few.
I was stunned. It was like, wow. After the fourth or fifth one, it's like, man, you basically got them all. And the guy's a freaking encyclopedia. So yeah, that was fun. I laughed out loud. If I was drinking something, I would have done a spit take. It was awesome. Anyway, so. Now that any thoughts? Okay, we're both recommending this to people. Any expectations? Right. We'll end with this. Any expectations you could throw at people before they see it? And it's like, be ready for this, but don't expect this. Anything from your side?
Well, okay. It's still about a pending invasion of Earth.
Yes.
It's still about, about Superman being, resurrected, or, it's debatable as to whether or not he was actually truly dead anyway.
Right.
But, it's about his return. So those are the big things. Those are the things that are unchanged thematically from the previous film, but pretty much everything else is different. The tone is consistent throughout the whole film. It doesn't leap into comedy moments. Um, and I think if you have seen the Joss Whedon version, the original theatrical cut, you kind of and you liked moments of it, but didn't like the film as a whole. You kind of owe it to yourself to see this, to find out what it should have, what it was supposed to be like, from the get-go. If you haven't seen the theatrical cut of Justice League, I wouldn't bother at this point. A far superior cut now exists of that film, the version that Zack Snyder produced, and then reproduced here, is going to line up with so many more films in the DCU has made.
Right.
There's no reason to look at the theatrical cut anymore. There's no reason to even regard it as, I guess you'd call it, canon or continuity when we have this version.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
All right. My recommendation is this. Again, it is, and I can't overstate this. Well, if you're a movie fan at all, you've heard of director's cuts. They've been around for decades. And the bigger the director is, the more influential, the more pull they have. This is, again, this is not that. This is not James Cameron doing a 3-hour version of The Abyss. This is not, extra 8 minutes here, or a few scenes added in here, or bonus scenes, or whatever. This is, in fact, the only reason they're even calling it a director's cut is because there's no other name you can put on it. This is a new animal in itself. It is a redo. This is a complete rebuilding of a movie that was supposed to be released. Although is it now better? I think it's actually better now than it would have been back 3-4 years ago, because it was 3-4 years ago. Again, it would have just been a 3-hour Watchmen that the studio would have hated him for it. It's like 3 hours and 15 minutes. You're crazy, right? We can't put this in the theater. And because Watchmen was a critical, did well in that sense, but it didn't, the money, you couldn't show it all the time, right? And even though I saw it in an absolute packed theater on a midnight opening night showing, I was the oldest person in the room, and I was 40. And everybody else was in their 20s, and it's like, but I made it through it, and went home and got some sleep. But this isn't that. This is, again, it's a complete, same opinion as you. It's like, you don't even have to watch the old version anymore unless you want to watch the theatrical version for historical purposes. Or if you want to know, you want to get some insights into filmmaking, you can see what what you can do with the same story, but with more time and more money and retooling it. So, but yeah, totally worth it. Spend the $15 to get HBO Max for a month and then binge watch everything you can. There's a lot on HBO Max, actually. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a bad service. I of course have to. I just because I don't want to be subscribed to all these different streaming services, I maintain 2 at all times.
Right. Yeah, and we'll see if because I was a lot on there I watched. I mean, if you want to catch up with everything that was DC, yeah, a lot of good stuff on there. I'll probably watch Doom Patrol. Who knows? Maybe in 2 months I might discontinue it, but I don't know. We'll see. Also, it's coming out on it now that I got it. It's the segue, the King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, and that's I'm still trying to get to see if that's playing in a theater near me. I'd rather watch it there, but if I can't, then obviously I will go.
Right.
To that, because I think when you have 2 extremely large monsters like that fighting, you kind of you should make every effort to see it on the biggest screen.
You should. You're absolutely right. But I haven't been to a movie in a long time. So anyway, thank you everybody for listening to this, and again, decide for yourself. But if you're a comic book fan like we are, and I would have done it without you, I wouldn't have. I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't have caved in. But all you said, what was your words? Vastly superior on all levels, or something like that.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah, it's that was the most succinct,
Yeah.
to the point thing I could say, and it was, I think, totally
Yeah,
accurate.
it was. It was. And
Yep.
the fact that I have not found a bad review yet on out there. I'm sure there's some Joss Whedon fans that are like, "Oh, wasn't that funny?" There's too the only criticism I have heard is that it's too dark. And
Yeah.
last but not least, before we go, there was one scene. It wasn't even an Easter egg. It was I don't know if they were taking a shot at the Avengers or just saying, you know what, we can do this too. Was when they were at the final battle and they were going through the streets at high speed. Batman was in his car and they all leapt or all passed by his car simultaneously. And that was in slow motion, and that was straight out of Age of Ultron.
Oh yeah.
And this, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, here's the frickin' Justice League. Superman's on his way. And it was like, yeah, I see what you did there. Very nice. Very nice.
You kind of have to have a group action shot like that.
Yeah, you do.
It's because the comic books are full of 2-page spreads of a huge poster like
Yeah.
moment in that. So that's part of the genre.
Yes.
But all right, well, thank you much for having me, Mark.
Yeah. No, thank you. And again, I've got to find little moments of levity in everything that's happening around me. It's like, why'd you do a movie review? It's like, because this is one of the happy things that I have found. And again, it only could have occurred if we were in some sort of crisis.
Right.
That's the only reason this happens is because of that.
Exactly.
It was just this weird set of circumstances. Otherwise, it would have been another Watchmen type deal, but not now.